Ready? All right. Well, welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining tonight. I know it might be a smaller session, but as you all are coming in, I just want to thank you again for just sticking with us. We've been doing this for 2 years now, every month, having connections calls. And I do feel like every single time they're different, and every single time I enjoy having them later at night so more of you can be a part of this. But I also find that I'm kind of all energized by the end. So I appreciate that. As you all come on, I'll ask you to mute yourself, or I can mute you, but it's probably easier if you mute yourself as you come on. And I just wanted to get started with, first off, asking you all, if as you're coming on, if you can add in the chat where you're calling in from, zooming in from. And if you happen to know, and you can certainly write down the church that you're a member of. If you could also write down, if you happen to know who the first keepers of the earth where you have your feet grounded, who first took care of that land that you find yourself on. And I will introduce myself. I'm Phoebe Morad, in case you didn't know, Phoebe Morad with Lutherans Restoring Creation. And I just want to emphasize the fact that we are a grassroots organization, and all of you on the phone are Lutherans Restoring Creation. I really, we have a nice mission statement, but recently I've been realizing that we're really more about, instead of telling you what to do, we're really here to tell everybody what you all do. So especially as this is going to be a smaller phone call, and we're talking about our human resources, I do want you to know that I'm going to put some of you on the spot. I've asked some of you to speak, but a lot of you, as you think about what are your human assets that you bring to the table, this call is really going to be really ushered by you all. So thank you very much for being on here. And if you hear groaning in the background, it's my dog. She's very happy and comfortable on the bed. I just want you to know that's what the background noise is. We respect the background noise. So I wanted to open, I'm really grateful that finally I found time to buy this book, Braiding Sweetgrass, that a lot of you all actually on these calls have mentioned is an incredible book. So in honor of Indigenous Peoples Month, I finally was able to purchase this. And I wanted to share just the very beginning. It's by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And I do highly suggest it, but I'm not very far through it. But I'm going to share something as an opening devotion, just to give you a taste of her incredible writing. And I think this really speaks to how and why we are together tonight. A sheaf of sweetgrass, bound at the end and divided into thirds, is ready to braid. In braiding sweetgrass, so that it is smooth, glossy, and worthy of the gift, a certain amount of tension is needed. And as any little girl with tight braids will tell you, you have to pull a bit. Of course, you can do it yourself by tying one end to a chair or by holding it in your teeth and braiding backward away from yourself. But the sweetest way is to have someone else hold the end so that you pull gently against each other, all the while leaning in head to head, chatting and laughing, watching each other's hands, one holding steady while the other shifts the slim bundles over one another, each in its turn. Linked by sweetgrass, there is reciprocity between you. Linked by sweetgrass, the holder as vital as the braider. The braid becomes finer and thinner as you near the end, until you're braiding individual braids of grass, and then you tie it off. Will you hold the end of the bundle while I braid? Hands joined by grass, can we bend our heads together and make a braid to honor the earth? And then I'll hold it for you while you braid too. So I thought that was a beautiful, I'm curious how many on the phone have already read this? Yeah, okay, Nancy, I knew you. So I welcome you all to the call, and I'm really grateful for the handful of you that were willing, very last minute, I'll say, to share a little bit of your story as we try to describe all the variety of human resources we offer each other as Lutherans who are restoring creation. And I'm going to start off by, I see that Deacon Myra Keel is on the line, and I had spoken to her on the phone just a few days ago, and realizing how there are all these other titles and trainings that lots of people have gone through, which is wonderful. But sometimes just understanding that you, as a fellow person in a church who has tried this stuff, being a conversation partner with someone is really important. So I hope I can hand this over to Deacon Myra. You're in Baltimore tonight, right? Okay, so go ahead and unmute. I think you got it. There you go.
Here I am.
Hi.
Yes. Here I am from St. Philip's, Baltimore. Started as an African-American church back in 1890. So we've been around for a long time. It was never a changeover church. It's always been an African-American congregation. And we're in East Baltimore in the shadow of Johns Hopkins Hospital. So this journey in terms of our congregation started, it was before the pandemic. And I was invited to go to a meeting for our Senate Creation Care group. And after that, I think I signed up to go to the ambassador training. And from there, I learned about, I think it was the covenant, how to become a covenant congregation. So the first thing we did was I gave everybody on our church council the packet of how to become a covenant congregation. And so the church council discussed it, and one of our ministries discussed it, whether it made sense, what we could do. And so we decided that this is something that we wanted to do, is to become a covenant congregation. So we did that. So in doing that, we've tried to have various activities to fit into that. One of our biggest projects so far has been that we've changed all the lighting in our church to LED lights. And I was telling Phoebe, I didn't realize how dark it was before we had that lighting. And talking to some of our seniors, they always think that LED lights are darker. And I said to them, and they haven't been to church in a long time, and I said, the church is so bright now, you wouldn't believe it. So that was our first big project, and it cost us nothing. Baltimore Gas and Electric Company has a program, and they'll come out and they'll do an audit, and they'll give you money towards it. They tell you how much your electricity will go down, and then we got some grants to do it. So it basically costs us nothing. So we're really proud of that. We changed the lights inside and out. And from that time, we've had other people in the congregation go to training. We have all kinds of green training, Chesapeake, I can't think of the name of it, but there are a lot of organizations that provide that. So this year, for God's Work Our Hands, we decided that our project would be recycling. So we gave members of the congregation information about how they can recycle in their homes. I'm also on our Senate's Creation Care ministry. And so there are so many resources, and I try to let our church members know, our council know what kind of resources are available. One of the things that we'll have coming up in the new year is they're going to do a stormwater audit because we have had some problems with that. And so there's a lot of things, and we already have our plan. We had someone do a plan of doing plants and trees on our property, on native plants. So we already have some grant money for that, and that'll be, what we'll work on in the spring. So it's worked out really well for a person who wasn't hardly interested in that. But I understand that Camp for Creation, it's always been painted as sort of this sort of tree hugger group and all that. But in understanding that, and I'm on the charter, Earth Charter team also, that it's in Camp for Creation, you care for each other, you care for the people, you make sure that the people understand, you make sure that they're living in environments that are good for them. And so I've learned a lot, and I pass on as much as I can. And I try to get as much information as I can so that our congregation can keep going forward. And so right now we're back um, in the building with a small amount of people, but it's not bad. And we still have people online. So, we have plans upcoming of what we can do now and what we hope to do in the future. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you, Myra. And I
Sure.
remember when we spoke to, you gave me the visual of, when you have like a picture of the planet on fire, no one's going to
Right,
be drawn to that. No one's
right,
coming to that party. Right.
right. Yeah,
So just the idea that, yeah, that you in conversation though, you can share experiences, and that's what leads to maybe a conversation about the planet being on fire, but you're not going to start with that. I
right.
really,
Yeah, and I think it's been really pleasant because our congregation, you know, bought into it. I mean, we still have a couple of people that that are, kind of funny about it. But you have to start, and this is my mantra. You have to start where people are. You can't come in with a lot of jargon and playing it on fire and footsteps and all that stuff. I mean, you have to come in a place where people are sitting at the moment, and then gradually take them um, to doing what needs to be done and understanding what's going on right
mm,
now. Even in our church community, we have a neighborhood that does not have a grocery store. I mean, it's like it's a food desert, and a lot is being controlled by the other folks up the hill. And I don't know where they go to shop. Just one day they decided, well, they're not going to have a grocery store. So, we have those kind of human needs
mhm,
for people for those that are part of our creation, and they're just treated so unfairly.
mm.
And, we have to be aware of that too.
I'll just lift up that somebody mentioned in the chat. Just I love the message that creation cares about how we treat one another. So, exactly to your point, Myra, it really can be that simple. So I do appreciate that this conversation. I don't want to list off too many different avenues for people to go down, but if you can keep it simple, honestly, Myra, you mentioned you started off just kind of with the paper document, right?
Right.
And so that paper document of a kit, but it really was how people interacted and spoke with each other. So handing the baton over to Gary Anderson, Myra, you had mentioned that you've also taken the ambassador training. So
Yes.
another opportunity that Gary is going to speak to now. Gary Anderson's calling in with Jeannie right there next beside him. Both of you calling in from Kansas, from Central States Lutherans Restoring Creation Mission Table. And meanwhile, you guys have gone through so many different trainings and workshops. I know that they might all start to blend, but Gary's going to speak specifically to what the ambassador training was all about, the Creation Care Ambassador training, and how you feel that is an offering to the larger community for talking about this ministry.
Thank you, Phoebe. Yeah, Jeannie and I were proud to be part of a retreat that we did just this last Saturday with our LRC team here in Central States, which is all the ELCA congregations in Kansas and Missouri. And we have been involved with LRC since our synod became an LRC synod in 2015. So we've had lots of time to get together. Our first in-depth training was done by Phoebe when she came out and visited us. So we owe her a big debt of thanks. And then I took training and worked on the program to become a Creation Care Ambassador with Eco America and Blessed Tomorrow, that organization, in 2020. And I told my LRC team over the weekend, I feel like after being involved with this pandemic since then, that we're kind of coming out of hibernation this year. And we actually had a get together. Our retreat was partially done on virtual on Zoom, but also we had a good share of our group was in person. So it was good to be together. So as an ambassador, we have access to a PowerPoint presentation that is on Creation Care that's been produced. And I wanted just to tell you a few of the themes that are on this so-called slide deck or PowerPoint presentation. It covers various things, but included in that are the first thing we did a check of our audience to kind of find out how they're feeling about climate change in Creation Care. Then we went on to have some ELCA positions and ELCA programs or documents that were included in the slides. We did cover climate change basics, pollution, temperatures, and disasters, regional impacts, why we care, solutions and savings, renewable energy, what we can do, resources, advocacy, and take action. So this program is available for ELCA Lutherans, but it also is available that has been customized for 4 other denominations. That's the American Baptist, United Church of Christ, Disciples of Christ, and the Presbyterian Church. So it includes about 60 slides with notes for each customization. I think it's very well done. The ability to customize your own presentation, like for our group, was allowing us to do slides that were included that were optional. We could insert or change, modify. That would cover the area, say the Midwest where we were, but they'd also had Northwest, as well as Alaska, Hawaii, and other regions of the country. The length of the presentation with all the notes that are furnished along with it took us about 55 minutes to an hour to present. And I was a little bit, for being my first time, I think it came off a little bit canned, but I did want to give them all of the information that was included in there. It's something that can be modified, but I did try to give them the whole load on this particular example. Some of the slides you can always add or delete. Some of them are animated. They had a short video segment. So as we are still in this difficult situation with the pandemic, it obviously is still one way to reach out to our congregations. Like I said, all our congregations are spread all the way across Kansas and Missouri. So doing it virtually through Zoom is still an option. But we as ambassadors, are willing to do some in-person meetings in our own synod, but could also be done in areas that might be nearby. And we also have done, Myra was mentioning it, Earth Charter. We also some of us are participating in some of the work that's being done to spread the Earth Charter across our synod. But I'm not really directly involved in that, but that's definitely available to our people also. And then we have other access to materials and guides that are on the website where we ambassadors can access, and they're very well done. Plus, they're doing programs all the time that they keep us surprised on. I just got notice today that they're doing a Zoom presentation on mental health and our changing climate. So there's widespread topics and so forth are available. So if you don't have a ambassador in your own synod, but look for nearby ones that might be available, and we certainly can share that information. I think it's very well done.
Excellent. And it really does come down to exactly what we started the conversation with, is you're still going to people where they're at. And still it is important to feel the room out before you share it, which is a lot more difficult this way. But the advantage too in asking an ambassador to help you out is that you don't know anybody. Sometimes you want someone to come to your congregation that doesn't go there, right? Like sometimes it really is advantageous to have, even if you're not necessarily an expert, you're still not someone who, who people know everything about. So to have someone else come in, I think is really helpful. Sometimes you can really offer that as an opportunity to hear from someone else. Now that we are so often on Zoom, you can go other places with this slide deck, offer it to like a Boy Scout troop or a gardening group, or think outside the box as far as where you want to go to share that slide deck. But it does still come back to what Myra started off with, is knowing who it is you're talking to. So, and I like that there are way too many slides there to go over all of them, as you well know, but being able to handpick them, I think, and not have to make them. Like, who on this wants to make more PowerPoints? Sometimes I do because I want to procrastinate. Oh, Thor does. Thor wants to do that. Okay, so send anything you want to Thor. He'll make you a PowerPoint. Awesome. So, okay, now I'm going to hand over the baton to Pastor Daryl Kozak, who is just in a lot of traffic. So just keep that in mind in California traffic. And he's going to share with us the other incredible opportunity. In fact, I'm going to open with this. I'm going to first say that because of what Gary and Jeannie had just mentioned, the fact that they were at one of the first workshops I had ever helped with in 2015, I actually really want to thank them, because it was their group that started to talk to me as this first workshop provider. And they said, well, are you guys a nonprofit? Can we send any money to you guys? Like what? And at that point, Lutherans Restoring Creation was not a nonprofit. I just thought I'll help and do a few more of these. And they started to get me thinking, gee, maybe there is a need for this. This whole synod wants to do more of this. And maybe there were some of those ideas germinating. And then I got a coach. And one of these ELCA coaches was able to help me. Lutherans Restoring Creation probably would not be this if I didn't spend about 6 months with a coach. So that's what Daryl is going to help describe a little bit. There is creation care coaching, but that first starts off with someone knowing how to be a coach. And I have to say that it was that process of coaching with someone that allowed this organization to be a nonprofit on its own. So it certainly works. It's definitely worthwhile. So with that, I'll hand it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Phoebe. And again, my apologies for being late. It's good to see all of you this afternoon or evening, where some of you are. It's only about 5:30 out here in California, so the sun is still up. I can see it from my window. Jane Afonso also, I think, will be chiming in a bit. She and I were doing this together, but I'll go ahead and start.
Here,
so another ministry that, just to lift up really quickly, is just the ELCA coaching in general, which has had a presence in about 18 years. I think we started in 2003. And in addition to the general coach training, we have specialties, and two of the newest, or among the newest, is Care for Creation Coach. We started that back in, I believe, 2019. And so we've had a few cohorts who have gone through training for Care for Creation. I'm one of the lab coaches, or one of the trainers, as well as Jane and a few others. And one of the things about coaching, just to kind of let you know what that is in case you don't know what it is, and I apologize to some of our coaches that I do see in the room here. Basically, a coach is not a consultant. We're not a mentor. We're not a therapist. We're basically to accompany you and to draw out for you with a series of questions and deep listening what your goals and objectives are, in this case, specifically for Care for Creation. And the biblical passage we use in the ELCA to explain what coaching is the walk to Emmaus, where Jesus is there with those two disciples and those two followers, and he's actually asking questions to them. And as that whole conversation unfolds, in the breaking of the bread, they realize that's the risen Christ with them. But the idea is he's drawing from them what's inside them, drawing out from them what's inside them. And so Care for Creation coaches, we go through a lot of training. Before you become even a Care for Creation coach, you have to go through what's called a level 1 coaching program, which is about 30 hours of in-person. Well, I guess now it's not in person, through Zoom. It used to always be in person. We do Zoom training, and then there's a series of a couple months where you're working in a triad with other coaches to hone those skills. And then after you do that, you can then, if you want to, go into the Care for Creation track, which is one of the tracks that I have done. I've also done end of life and grief coaching. I won't get into that. This is the Care for Creation coaching. And the whole specific idea of this is to work with either individuals, or what I've been doing mostly is with congregations, specifically with congregations that are really trying to focus on how can they be a more of a green congregation. You know, so many churches, so many people, individuals have that ambition, and they just need someone to kind of walk the process through there. We do have resources, so that's one of the kind of things where I sometimes, as a Care for Creation coach, will kind of switch the hat and put on advisor to an extent, as long as I come back to a question to make sure it makes sense for someone, because we do have lots of resources, all of them from Lutherans Restoring Creation and other sources, and it's been a blessing to be able to go through this training and to also train others. So how the training works, just so you know, we do a 6-hour orientation, and then for 7 consecutive months, usually consecutive months, we do 2 hours a month in a lab. And that's to kind of go through resources, do some coaching so that we can kind of continue to hone those skills. And the Care for Creation trained coaches, while they're being trained, they're to find, for lack of a better term, clients who they are working with. Those clients can be a family member, a friend, a member from church, just so they can kind of work with that process of being a Care for Creation coach. So it's been a blessing to be able to add this other skill set to my coaching and everything. And it's been great to be part of that. And so at this time, I want to kind of turn over to Jane, because she was the one who was my cohort teacher way back in pre-COVID days, you know, and everything. So, and Jane will share some insights as well, because she also has a significant story with Care for Creation coaching that I don't have. Jane.
Okay, so I hope y'all can hear me. I was part of the first level 2 training for coaches, along with Mark Carlson, who's on the call. By the way, he was the former executive director of Lutheran Office of Public Policy in Sacramento. And there was another person in our triad, Pastor Dan Smith, who I believe got a master's or a doctorate in some kind of environmental thing, as well as being a pastor. So I will say that in the whole journey of coaching, being coached and coaching others, and then doing the training to become a coach, to help others become a coach, the people I've met are incredible. So I'm going to put that out there right there. This work can be kind of lonely. You can feel like you're the only one. Everybody says they care about creation, but not everybody wants to stick their, you know, put themselves out there. And so it's wonderful to be with others that are willing to do this hard work. And I want to say that's so cool about the origin story for Lutherans Restoring Creation. And I would say that the origin story for our creation care group at our congregation is because of coaching. It's because I was required to go out and find other coaches and be coached. And so there's this accountability about coaching. You know, you have to get certain things done in time to have your next meeting. So it's very helpful. And I have to say that this year, our pastor is a member of our creation care team. So I can't say more about it, except the one other thing that is just so important. It has really deepened my faith. So I'm going to put that in there. That's it. Oh, one more thing. I just wanted to congratulate Daryl, because he is a certified associate coach. I hope that I have that right.
Associate certified coach. Actually, I'm hoping to become a professional certified coach by the end of this year. I've got the hours under my belt. I just have to, you know, get a recording for my mentor that meets his approval and everything. So yeah, and but again, Jane, thank you for being, you know, my cohort teacher and everything, because you were phenomenal in that. Yeah,
it was during Zoom, and we really built a really tight group. It was really wonderful. And I forgot to mention, it's a wonderful small grouping of lay and clergy. So it's, yeah.
I guess one more question for you two is, if someone wanted a coach, how do they go about finding a coach?
So, of course, you could contact us directly through the elcacoaching.org is the kind of the main website there, and you can, through that, you can request a coach, and they'll match you up with someone. And sometimes there's fees involved, sometimes there's not fees involved. It depends on people's situations and everything. I know Jane and Mark and myself are always available. You can reach out to us directly. Beauty of Zoom, even before Zoom, most of my coaching was always on the phone. So I had people even over in Europe that were clients of mine in the last several years. But what's nice about this is you can be in the comfort of your home and you can meet with someone not in your time zone, and which is great about that. So I would encourage any of you for Care for Creation, definitely. But if you have other things that you're seeking a coach for, the ELCA has had this ministry now, like I said, for almost 20 years. And we're very trained, very qualified to be able to do this work with you. And it's a blessing to work with so many people, especially those who have such a love for creation. And it's been exciting, as Jane can say too, for those of us who've had cohorts, and to see the enthusiasm and the excitement of the students, for lack of a better term, who've gone through this, because they too have had a great love for creation, how they can then spread that good news to their congregations and to their communities. And it all takes planting the seeds. Well, all this creation talk, it all takes planting the seeds to get that momentum going and everything. But I think we're doing some wonderful ministry here, even in this day of Zooming all the time. But yes, to answer that question again, if you go to elcacoaching.org, then you can follow the steps.
Or I'm sure that Phoebe could connect you to Daryl or me, or we should give out a shout out to Pastor Janice Hawley, who's really been she's done a just wonderful job of building this program. And then our support is the person at the ELCA is Jill Beverland. So it's a great team.
It's an awesome team. And the link that I just put on there is kind of from our Lutherans Restoring Creation page. And so that will link you and have pictures of Jill and Janice, I believe, on there too. But I want to emphasize the fact that this is definitely, if you are ready and willing to be a leader, but don't really know what to do next, these people can help you, and they don't need to live anywhere near you. In fact, sometimes that's the best. When I was coaching, it was only over the phone. And I just remember where I was sitting. Do you know how important calls are when you remember exactly where you were sitting, right? When you had those conversations. So yeah, I just can't emphasize enough how being coached definitely helped my faith journey in this profession, if that makes sense. So I just really want to thank you all for being as trained as you are, but also for being willing to help usher other leaders do this particular work. And yeah, you guys really epitomize the idea that there's a human asset that can't be replicated on whatever cool new site there is, or, database or whatever. It can't be replicated. And the funny thing is, they don't do a lot of talking. There are a lot of very pregnant pauses, and you have to fill in the blanks, because it really is about your next step when you're being coached. So anyways, thank you for sharing that message. And I know Jane has to go, but I'll get you her contact information too, if anybody wants to be in touch with her. So with that line, as well as being human assets. So I know that as coaches, I know that sometimes a coach can coach a team of people. But if you're really more interested in how do I listen to and interact with my community, now, again, through ELCA, we have Organizing for Mission is a network that we've been partnering with, I think, for a couple of years now, but more specifically, they've been able to help support our creation care work through a grant through the Stewardship of Life Institute. Stewardship of Life Institute is great with giving little pots of money to help synods figure out, hey, go try this. So they said, hey, go try this to about 4 different synods who were helping with, who were already great at doing creation care work, but maybe just needed that next step. So if I can ask Aurelio Ramirez, are you still on the line, or is it still, did it get too windy where you are?
Nope, I'm still here.
Oh, good. Okay, awesome. So I know that you've just started, you've been going through this training. And if you want to speak at all to where you feel like this fits into the host of the bouquet of different things that we have to offer each other, where does community organizing come into the mix?
Yeah, this was really, I have to be honest, this was the first time where I really felt I was doing community organizing. I've always been a part of different groups and have, tried to, participate and do what I can. And what I've discovered, community organizing is so much more than, more than just being a part of a team or a group. It's a lot about listening. The first aspect of community organizing is building relationships. And I think what you've come to understand is, in building relationships, you have to have conversations. And those conversations can't be, for just 5 or 10 minutes after a service, or, at a luncheon that you're, happen to be with somebody. It's like you have to have this kind of 30-40 minute intentional conversation to really get to a sense of, what values is a person bringing to whatever issue might be important to them. And I think what you discover when you have these conversations, you just don't know where they're going to lead. And I think a lot of times, one of the things that it made me think about is, when we're a part of a church council, I think a lot of times the leaders look at people and say, oh, this person can do this, or this person can do that. And really what this taught me is that we really shouldn't be deciding for things for people to do, but we really should be talking to them and finding out what are their strengths, what can they bring to the council that'll make for a better church. And it's like, how you go about doing that, is through, one-on-one, conversations. And I think what you find is when you have those conversations, you're learning. It's like you think you know somebody, but then you realize from talking to them, oh, this person was in the Navy before his current position, and in the Navy he did this. And now that he's living in Watertown, he's involved in green team work with the town. And it's like, this is something I had no idea that person was doing. And it was only because, I had asked to, have that intentional conversation that we were able to, talk about those issues. We've been working with, Kelly Marcialis, who is in the ELCA Senate. It's the Organizing for Mission. And, she's in Alaska. And, to think that we've been, having these regular conversations, from Alaska, it's just been, truly wonderful. Pastor Nancy's on this call as well. She's someone, has been working on PFAS issues in Vermont, and bringing that, to, greater awareness there. And now throughout the Senate, we're thinking more about how is this an issue that we might be able to deal with. We've been reading things from Sue Eng, who was, the predecessor before Kelly Marcialis. She had a handout, and there's a quote from that handout that, just really, made me think. And it's a quote from Ricardo Morales. And of course, she doesn't say who Ricardo Morales is, but Ricardo Morales is an artist who does social activist and political art in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And this quote, I just want to read it to you, and it just lets you think about what does it mean about community organizing. If you give me a fish, you have fed me for a day. If you teach me to fish, then you have fed me until the river is contaminated or the shoreline seized for development. If you teach me to organize, then whatever the challenge, I can join together with my peers and we will fashion our own solutions. And this is something, I really have, started to think about. It's like I think too much of the time we think about, oh, what can we do? What can we hand somebody? What can we do, in the short term? But how can we start to deal with the symptoms, which is, so much of what, community organizing is about.
I love that quote. And is he a Lutheran, would you think, because he's from Minneapolis? I don't know. I might be. Thank you so much. And I am curious too, Nancy, if you want to add to that too. I know Nancy and you guys from Central States, and Myra, you've been on these organizing calls as well. And I think it's hard to understand that, community organizing, what's the difference between community organizing and activism? Right. And I don't know, how would you, any of you that have been on those trainings and advocacy. So there's organizing, there's advocacy, and there's activism. How would you draw lines between all those? Because they're pretty fuzzy. Anybody want to take a shot? This isn't a test for those of you who are.
I would ask Aurelia or Deacon Keel go first.
Oh, wow. Okay. The one thing I think I've learned is that when organizing, you, the group that you're working with, the churches, they define what it is they think that they should be doing, and you kind of walk with them through that. So you're not like giving them anything except your support, but having them define what they're passionate about, what they think they need to do in their community, and having conversations with them, you know, how do you think you should go about this? You know, that kind of thing. Is that close, Pastor?
I think that, you know, it's all, I mean, I think those are just various aspects of, you know, faith-based responses that you can have. And yeah, there's advocacy, and, you know, that advocacy, you know, might involve you know, contacting, you know, local politicians about, you know, particular issues, or, you know, whereas the activism, you know, I think you're taking, you know, a bit more active role, you know, participating. You know, I remember being on a, you know, Black Lives Matters bike ride, and they try to do that once a month in the Boston area. And, you know, that, you know, it's like, I'd never, you know, been on a bike ride like that before. And it was definitely, you know, you know, and it was much more, you know, the chanting, the, you know, communal, you know, response, you know, that you know, go through in doing that. And, you know, that's different than whether you serve, you know, do service, you know, for a particular organization, or, you know, think about, you know, various issues.
Yeah, I would just build on both of those comments to say that I think that I've learned from Kelly Marcialis and from Suang and from everyone involved in this has been that whether it's activism or advocacy, it's an action that mobilizes, that helps to organize a group, an action that is done, that is agreed upon, that goes forward in terms of trying to change power dynamic. It could be, sorry?
You say like shift power somehow.
Exactly. So it could be advocacy. Kelly had a team meeting with us where we wrote opinion letters to the newspapers. So on PFAS in that particular case. So that was an action step. So that was just an example.
Thank you. Mark, did you have a question about this? I see your hand up.
Oh, no, I didn't have a question. I had a little perspective,
yeah.
and just to
Yes,
build
good,
on
good.
all the good stuff that everybody said. But I think, you know, for the many years I spent with the ELCA, it's been an evolution of the dance between advocacy and community organizing. And I've always tried to build bridges there. You know, when I was freshman sociology class at Bethany College, and well, 50 years ago, you know, we read Rules for Radicals, Saul Alinsky, and, you know, in graduate school. But I just one perspective, it is all about the exercise of power. It is all about relationships, including relationships, not just with each other in the community, but with elected officials and people who work in administrative capacities. And there is a bit of an inside game and an outside game. So advocacy generally doesn't include the direct action component that may or may not include civil disobedience, but certainly putting your body out there, where, you know, advocacy is, and I've seen it kind of done badly on some issues where people don't talk to each other, but they're working for the same goal. And I've seen it really come together with good chemistry.
So disorganized activism.
Well, when so the Poor People's Campaign came to Sacramento and was very disruptive in their civil disobedience. while I was Ched Myers, I, took Ched Myers into a state senator, Bartimaeus Cooperative Ministries and all the things that we shared in common. But, outside people were getting arrested, and the state senator said, all I know is somebody's out there making a lot of noise. I don't know what they want. And she was one of the good ones. Her chief of staff was Lutheran. That's why we got into have quality time. So yeah, it is about relationships, but it's also about talking with each other.
A coordinated effort of some sort.
And kind of a common messaging too. And community organizing and direct action can message a little more powerfully and prophetically. Whereas if otherwise you go in and you can get just thrown out of legislators' offices if you be too prophetic.
Well, Mark, that's a really good segue, because I want to emphasize the point that, for one thing, I love that our connection calls do this. They lift up human relationships, and that this is why we're here together and why we like to meet once a month. But also to have some sort of collaborative mission. And that is, somebody had asked, when are we going to be sharing a lot of these are recorded calls over the past, starting in August and then September and October. These 3 calls, we really want to be ongoing resources as people are ushered into the season of going to their conferences or assemblies and lifting up 1 or 2 memorials or resolutions to then go to churchwide assembly. So with those coordinated efforts, we can have, a template of a memorial that we're asking our churches to think about, what does it mean to reduce our greenhouse gases. But we're still going to want to start with, for one thing, showing it off ourselves, being, the advocating for something. We also have to model, and we have to have in our personal discipleship, as part of our personal discipline. So I just want to emphasize the fact that, yes, you can all choose your own adventure as far as how you live this out and get some of that going. But if we have a coordinated message that is really helpful once we get to churchwide, or once we got, so that we can say ELCA Lutherans feel this way, all of you leaders. So anyways, thank you, Mark, for kind of, I'm sure you did that on purpose. Jeannie and Gary, go ahead. You're still on mute though.
There we go. I just wanted to, you mentioned relationships through the chat. We just found out that Mark Carlson knows our LRC leader, who's Pastor Noni Strand. She was campus pastor at Bethany, I believe, when Mark was there, or at least they knew each other through that connection. And Noni is also a creation care coach. I don't know if she's been taught by Daryl or the other person, I've lost track of her name.
Jane, I think she did.
Jane, yes.
Too. Yep.
But anyway, that just shows one more example of all the connections and relationships. Great to know.
And I love to use Noni as an example too, of the fact that, and she knows I've done this before to her, but it was about 1.5 years that I called and left messages with her to try to get her involved. And so I just want to emphasize the fact that it's all about timing. I was calling her while she was in deep with Bethany College, and she just wasn't going to respond then. And I kind of had started to give up on her. And now look at the Central States Mission Group, never would have existed if it wasn't for Noni's fuel to that. So just remember too, it is all about catching people at the, as Aurelio was mentioning, you don't know about people, and you don't know what they're going through too. They could have the best bumper stickers on the back of their car, and you're wondering, why aren't they joining me? And it might be because they have a lot going on right now and they can't. So anyways, I love the fact that Noni, it was just, I just kind of kept calling her, just a nudge, just a little nudge. So while I would like it, if anybody else has anything to add, I'm not going to watch for the hand raising. So please unmute yourself and interrupt me as I'm going to try to share my screen. And just in the last minute or so, I want to share my screen. Let's see, I'm going to hit screen 2. Can you tell me if you can see Do you see the PLTS thing right now? Is that what you see?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so that was the last link I sent out to you. If you are interested in community organizing and doing essentially what those who just spoke about were doing as a team, there's going to be a particular course at PLTS for that. Thanks to the Soli grant for ushering this over, it will be living at Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary. So that deadline is coming up on November 12th. That's in the chat. And then what I also just wanted to be sure, I'm moseying around my site now. Can you see, is the page launching? You see our website?
Yes.
That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you. So I wanted to just emphasize the fact that all of these different types of people and types of human resources we have, what we're trying to do on this site is have a place where you all get to at least see each other and know all these different types of human resources are here. When you go to the map of Creation Care Ministries, most of the dots that you see on here are Lutheran related somehow or another. And you can filter by, I wanted to show this off too, because there's a lot going on here I wanted to show you. You filter by, if you're only looking for somebody to either to speak or Zoom with you, you can check off Speakers Bureau and Creation Care Ambassadors. This is a little scrolling bar. And so that'll show you all the different people. And then you can also search down here by these titles. But if this is all too much for you to manage, that's why I have at the very top, click here to contact me, just to say, but to see the visual, I think helps you know how many different types of entry points. So if you're a gardener and just want to know what other type of gardening ministries there are out there, we're adding all those to the map. Now, I say we, and I am still looking for volunteers to help collect all this information. But in the meantime, you can also add your own marker. So please be sure to go on and do that. It won't show up right away. It'll be sent to me and I have to make sure that you're legit and they'll check you off. And legit meaning, you know, it's not going to some site that otherwise should not be seen. So I wanted to let you all know about that. If anybody has any questions about it. Oh, I see a chat. Let me see. No, okay. Oh, good. And Lisa, yes, go ahead, Lisa. Unmute Lisa and share.
So I put a couple things in the chat. I have a daily devotional that I've developed for use during the UN Climate Conference. It starts on Sunday. I am happy to email it to anyone who would like it, and you are more than welcome to print off copies and distribute them at worship this weekend, or to email them to your congregation, or whatever so moves you. On the 21st of November, I will be presenting on a climate action plan for faith communities and people of faith. It's basically at a high level, a methodology and approach for you in your congregation, as well as among your members, to develop a plan of action on addressing climate. The other thing that I didn't list in the chat, because I didn't get around to it yet, for those of you who are interested, and that second item will be online on November 21st at 6 p.m. You can register on Eventbrite. The other thing that's on Eventbrite, if you might be interested, is I have a weekly book discussion group online for Advent using the resource All Creation Waits by Gail Boss. And I invite anyone who's interested to join me in meeting weekly to reflect on and discuss that devotional. I'll put it in the chat just so you don't have to write it all down, but those are the things that are coming up that would be accessible to anybody on this call.
Okay. And I do believe that most of those are on our events page as well. And if not yet, will be soon. So you can keep going to the Lutherans Restoring Creation upcoming events. So, and I'm really shocked that the hour's almost over. And I did ask Deacon Myra if she didn't mind closing us in prayer. Unless there are any other pressing questions for this whole group, I can also hang out just after. Any pressing questions? Oh, Gary, go ahead.
Have you mentioned to anybody
No.
on this group that
No.
Catherine Hayhoe has a new book out now, Saving Us, a Climate Scientist's Case for Hope and Healing in a Divided World. It's excellent.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll add that to our book site too. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Deacon Myra, please bring us back full circle. Thank you. Thank you all to all of you speakers too. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this gathering of people who love the Lord and who love your creation. Keep us always. I know you pray for us every day as we pray to you for our needs and what this creation needs, what our country needs. Let us be mindful that our creation includes care for each other and that others are not facing environmental injustice as they live in communities where people decide to burn trash or have a crematory. And Father, let us continue to pray and ask for your guidance and your blessings, and bless these hands that do your work and your will in God's creation. All these things we pray in the name of your Son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus, who is the Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you, speakers, for coming on, and thank you for all joining us. Thank you for whoever's watching this later in the future. Thank you.